Hey everybody, you are back. It is Jack Murphy. You are on the Jack Murphy Live podcast. We got Delicious Tacos here. He's laughing at me, ruining up my shill intro. You can find me, Jack Murphy, at jackmurphylive.com, on Twitter, at jackmurphylive. Basically, Jack Murphy Live all over the internet. I actually planned it that way, so reach out and find me. The book I'm shilling is Still Democrats Are Deplorable, selling very well. Please check it out on Amazon. Also, come down to the Liminal Order and check out what we're doing there, an all-men's international organization with 200 members, spanning 7 countries and 3 continents. Now, we are worldwide. Come on down, check us out, liminal-order.com. And that's because some jackass squatted on liminalorder.com as I was brainstorming names for the group a year ago. I've been cyber squatted, so it's liminal-order.com. Come down and check us out. I have today a return guest, somebody who people report that the podcast I did with this guy, Delicious Tacos, was the best podcast they'd ever listened to on any subject matter at any time in the history of the podcast universe. So that's quite a feat to have to follow up this time. I think we'll settle for mid-grade. Ladies and gentlemen, my favorite fiction writer in all of the world, the one and only Delicious Tacos. How you doing, sir? Welcome.
Good morning. Somehow I'm nervous for this one.
No.
I was totally your podcast last year was one of the first ones I'd ever done. I was totally relaxed about it. For some reason, hyping this book has made me more anxiety ridden than anything I've done in my life. I did a podcast yesterday with Kantbot and one of my favorite authors, Sam Pink, and I felt like I was about to take the fucking SATs. For some reason, and I've tried like prayer and meditation about it. Mm-hmm. When I do these podcasts, what I want is to be I'm an actor here. This is not my show. It's not my job to lay the groundwork and the structure of it. I'm here to support you and your podcast and try to tell the audience something and try to be unselfishly contribute something to the world. And so I pray to do that before I do these podcasts. I'm like, God, please let me serve Jack Murphy and his audience. And it just doesn't, God is not sticking with me. Maybe it's something about the quarantine, but I have this feeling of like, oh God, I gotta fucking sell this book, blah, blah. The book's been out for 2 weeks, even 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And there's just more of a sense of like, I gotta, and it's doing well. It's doing better than any of my books have ever done before. Oh, I'm making substantial money from it. People like
millions.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's sort of part of me always wants, even though I know that there's no big break, part of me always wants something to become a viral sensation. A thing that the philosophy of art that I always think about is the Grateful Dead. Who never had a radio hit until the lead guy was fat and old and looked like Santa Claus. Somehow, finally, in 1987, they had a hit. But before that, they just kept performing live and people kept showing up. And it was this cult thing. And they...
You are the Grateful Dead. You are the Grateful Dead.
That's what, and most people hated them, right? Most people were like, when you looked at their shows, it's like a fat guy that looks like Santa. It's a weird gay-looking guy in dolphin shorts. They seem like dorks. Their audience is all like crazy hippies, and yet somehow when you go to that show, it's a mind-blowing experience. Every show is different. They didn't, they had one big hit, and then they didn't play it every time.
That's right.
And they just kind of they had an ethic of feeding off the audience's energy, never playing the same show twice, experimenting.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they fucking failed and it sucked. But there was always a couple of moments when it was incredible.
Yeah.
And so that's that's where I'm like, I'm going to stop. I'm just going to keep showing up. I'm going to keep playing the music that suits the energy of the time and do my best. But then suddenly when I have something where I can measure it with a metric, and also like there's a real desperation that I'm trying to own. I'm like, I'm coming to realize, like, I was always like, I do want to have artistic integrity. In other words, I can't sell out. I just am not capable of doing something that's sort of popular or tailored to the times or whatever. But I want the trappings of success. I want lots of money, a beautiful girlfriend, and I want people to recognize me on the street. I'm tired
This sounds like the beginning of Train Spotting, and we know where that ended up, right? So the Grateful Dead is an interesting thing to bring up because they were one of the original content marketers, right? Because they would allow people to record their shows and then distribute their shows underground, and they didn't charge or license or anything. And it was those underground tapes that got me into the Grateful Dead in the '90s because there was only like 6 archetypes you could pick of what character you were going to be in high school, and Grateful Dead was one of my character selections for a couple of years. And that's how I got into them, is because somebody handed me a tape of a show. And so really that's kind of like the original content marketing from our perspective. You put all this shit out there for free, and then eventually when you got something to sell, hopefully your people will buy it. Now let me ask you a question, sir.
Yes.
What is a metric of success for you?
The white whale that I'm hunting is not having to have a job. It's independent book sales, providing me with a middle-class income that's adequate to raise one biological child in a middle-class manner. That is see how oddly specific it is too. Like I've really regressed spiritually. I think last time I talked to you, I was like, I'm really grateful that I'm making $5 off this. And I love, all I want is to share my truth with people and make them feel less alone. And somehow this year I'm like, it has to be a fucking BMW and a house in Southern California.
But you certified pre-owned.
Yeah. I mean, right now I'm driving a certified pre-owned Subaru Legacy, which is a fucking fine vehicle.
You love it.
I do love it.
I fell in love with it in your book, man.
It's a great shit hits the fan car because it's got all-wheel drive. The fucking thing is never going to break. It's plenty of room.
This is one of your talents, being able to make, the sexy list sexy. The Subaru, I'm into it, dude. I want it now.
It's a great car. I don't know what you drive, but it's the AWD on it. It's a great car for commuting to like my nerd job. And then also once in a while you take it up to Idaho and there's a fucking hailstorm or something and the thing just handles it.
Yeah, totally. I have 4-wheel drive in my car, and I think the only time I ever use it is when my 7-year-old gets in the car and she starts pushing buttons. She goes, "What does this one do, Daddy?"
Yeah.
And I go, "This is when we're driving off road." which is literally never. Except
now this is an exciting time because we got a little taste of shit might hit the fan.
Yeah.
There's a feeling, I think, that it's not really going to. We're merely going to enter a second Great Depression where life just becomes marginally more annoying. Like I don't think anybody's thinking that basic needs aren't going to be met or anything like that, but I think this era of prosperity might be coming to an end.
Indeed.
But there was a little taste of uncertainty where nobody had any idea what the disease was really like because it came out of China that's never going to tell you anything. Right. And what if it does eat your testicles? What if it does cause permanent lung and brain damage? What if the fatality rate for some reason is there's some more malevolent strain that kills some huge number of people and it really does become packs of roving ghouls in the streets. It's exciting and
good content.
Yeah. This is where in the shift of the energy from Corona being sexy to it becoming very boring.
Yes, I definitely feeling that. I tweeted out the other day. It's okay to be bored by Corona.
Yeah. I'm tired of the quarantine.
Yeah. I can imagine. I mean, a lot of us are, but we'll take one moment of seriousness here to reflect upon being a knowledge worker in these days is a very fine and keen place to be. I saw a good example. There's blue collar, white collar, and no collar, and knowledge workers. The Zoom class economy, as I've been writing about now, is the no collar economy, and it's a good place to be. If you were set up to be that way. And so, there's some positives and definitely some negatives. And by the way, I just want to note it took us 8 minutes to get to Corona.
Yeah. There's no not talking about it.
I was gonna explicitly rule it out, but there's no way to avoid that. And I was thinking about it because one of my questions I had for you was your last book Finally some good news. And
Yeah.
I forgot to fucking pimp the book at the beginning, by the way. Hey, everybody. Delicious Tacos has a new book out. It's called The Savage Spear of the Unicorn. It has a beautiful blue cover with an excellent drawing of a unicorn that got my 7-year-old's attention. She goes, Daddy, I love unicorns. What's this one about? What does Savage Spear of the Unicorn mean? And I was like, I don't know. They're just magical animals, honey. But anyway, go get it.
What do you think of the book?
Well, she's halfway through, and her margin notes are intense. But I gotta hide that shit from around here. It's worse than having a penthouse laying around.
This is it is the opposite problem. Like I wrote a book called The Pussy, which nobody can leave around their house. Finally, some good news has an atomic bomb going off on the cover, and the title is endorsing mass death.
Yes.
This one, I hadn't thought about that, is that it's a playful children's looking cover designed by an artist named Owen Cyclops and Matt Lawrence, who does all my covers. So I want to give a shout out to those two
from the old days.
Yeah, and both of them did a brilliant job. But yeah, it looks like something that a little girl would pick up and want to read. And then the stories are called like "Fuck, Cunt, Pussy" and I
try to put that one on the top shelf next to the weed. So if they really, really, really want to get to it, they can. Who's going to stop them in that case? but I wanted to ask you though, the last book. Finally, some good news was apocalyptic porn fantasy, basically, about it being a good thing. And, in some ways, the apocalypse has come and it's happening right now. And is it going the way that you saw it, sir?
It's a little different. I'm getting laid less. I mean, the part that was a naked fantasy in the last book was the character travels around with the hot girl from his office who also survives the nuclear explosion. That has not happened to me. I didn't get trapped in quarantine with an attractive woman. Instead, it's just me with my bag of fucking lentils and rice.
There you go. But you did get enough of those in advance, yes.
Well, I will tell you that when shit started getting ominous, I was absolutely in a great position because I'd already thought all this stuff through. Like I'd thought about what weapons to buy, what you would need, how you might fuck up. And so if shit really did hit the fan, I had a 4-wheel drive vehicle. I got I got a bow and arrow. I went to the gun store and I thought, I'm too crazy to have a gun, so I'm going to get this bow and arrow, which we should discuss later because it turned out to be a really fun hobby for the quarantine. I did end up also getting a gun. I got, 20 pounds. This is back in January, February, probably February. I'm buying, the 20-pound bag of rice, the, bags of beans and proteins and huge jugs of vegetable oil, and I'm fucking putting tap water in every container that I have in the house because I sort of had thought it through. I had thought through this prepper fantasy, but what doesn't happen in real life is an exciting plot happens.
Right.
But I was prepared. I had, duct tape, paracord, knife, other weapons, flashlight, everything I might need, comfortable shoes to put it in a backpack and walk over the Angeles Crest into the wilderness just in case shit really starts hitting the fan here.
Yeah, but instead, what have you found, sir?
Instead, I'm stuck in my house, working from home on Zoom meetings, doing conference calls. People in the business world are rudely not acknowledging apocalyptic times, or they're thinking about ways that it's an opportunity for their business. And instead of letting me just be lazy and lay around nude in my yard, which is what I'd like to be doing, I'm working.
Fucking hey.
Yeah. And all the girls on Hinge want to go on Skype dates, which is preposterous. And I thought I was trying to write this gimmicky short story about a Skype date, but the reality is too boring to write about. It's just awful. Like nothing is happening. California is this giant anticlimax where no real outbreak happened, and they're trying to push up these preposterously small coronavirus numbers like it's a big thing. Like what would have happened if we hadn't done this? It's like, okay, but did you have to close down the beach? Did you have to close down the hiking trails? I understand what they're doing, and I get it's out of an abundance of caution. However, at some point, we're kind of at my fear about the California lockdown is it's going to extend way past when it's at all interesting to anybody.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
good things about it are, I was out in the park yesterday, looking at two girls sitting on a blanket talking, having forbidden within 6 foot contacts. One of them is wearing like a white puffy dress, and she keeps shifting around, and I'm seeing her panties. And it was so exotic to see like a real woman's panties. It was like being 12 years old again. Every time I get, once in a while, there's a food truck, I get food truck food, and it feels like growing up sort of not rich in a small town, and you eat out as a treat, and that's what it feels like holding a warm takeout container. It's like, oh my god, I'm going to eat food that I didn't cook myself. This is
Yes.
I feel like I feel like a king right now. This lavish feast of whatever it is, fucking barbecue joint.
So are you feeling a sense of gratitude creep in for some things?
That is the good aspect spiritually, is there's a lot that I'm grateful for. It happened that last year, or end of 2018, I got evicted from my apartment, which I really liked a lot because my landlady was just a cunt and she threw me out for no reason. And so I was forced to move into a nice house with a yard. And it's like being on house arrest. It's like when Dr. Dre was on house arrest and they asked him what it's like, and he's like, I live in a great house. So it's
Yeah.
not that bad.
Yeah.
And it's really not that bad. I've got an illegal archery range in the side yard where I shoot fucking bows and arrows with my neighbor. He's my conspiracy buddy. So we both bought bows and arrows and like seeds and all this other shit and all these
Nice.
supplies. And like, we're in a beautifully fortified position. I've got a natural backstop behind me, so no Morlocks can approach from the top. Coming up the place, there's a choke point. Like, if you were a Navy SEAL and had to defend this house, like, you'd have a hard on because it's so great. There's like a cactus field behind my house. So anybody that wants to get to me has to go through the nastiest tumbleweeds and cactuses and, all these crazy, like, rusty tetanus laden fences. So it's a great place to be, but I'm lonely for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I can hear it in my voice now. This is something that happens every time I get on a phone call, and I'm hearing it now too. Like, you asked me some unrelated question about 14 minutes ago, and I've just been rambling on because I'm like an Old West mountain man. I've got a lot of words in me. They're not particularly profound, so they're not like great written words that I can put into something. I just have a lot of extra horse shit trapped in me waiting to get out.
Yeah, that's interesting. How have you been dealing with? If you read your books, you sound like lonely, but we know that there's a lot of depth to your life. I'm sure. But so, what are you doing now to deal with maybe this extra sense of isolation or separation? That's a real thing. What are you doing about that?
What I'm missing is touch. I mean, once in a while, I fuck a hooker every 2 weeks to get touched by somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I'm supposed to be shocked by that.
Yeah, it's normal. People do it, and it's a normal thing to do. I have two seeking arrangement girls that are not, that don't have coronavirus, and neither do I. And they come over, and I fuck them, and we give each other back rubs and shoot the shit. But otherwise, I mean, I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous. I got to talk to other alcoholics on the phone once in a while. I'm going to AA Zoom meetings that occasionally get bombed by 4chan. So people will post like Adolf Hitler will come in the meeting, and it's a 15-year-old boy with like a picture of Osama bin Laden or something. I had the greatest AA Zoom bombing ever because there's these meeting moderators that just don't. You forget how non-internet savvy people are. So there's literally like 15-year-old boys called like Mike Hunt and Jack Hoff, and the moderator's like, Mike Hunt, would you like to share?
Right.
And then he unmutes Mike Hunt, and Mike Hunt just starts screaming Heil Hitler, and the old guy that's running the meeting has no idea what to do. It makes the meeting so much less boring. It's so much more interesting to hear these kids.
But you poo-poo it a little bit, but I think you find comfort in spiritual growth and good energy and positivity there, yeah?
So here's the positive spiritual thing that's happening. I've got a beautiful front yard where birds come and feast on the weed seeds, and I'm seeing, God is present in my life. I'm spending time with this stray cat that I take care of that lives in the neighbor's yard. And so It's been great that way. I'm getting lots of sunshine. I'm working out like a convict. I'm running up a mountain, lifting. I've got great set of weights in my backyard. I'm probably in the best shape of my life. I'm eating home cooked meals every day with tons of vegetables, nice fatty meats, connective tissue. I'm in great shape for an old man. But
Yeah. We're the same age, I think.
you've got a great amount of white. Nobody's seeing the video, but you have this incredible wizard beard with a perfect white pattern, like
People ask me if I
symmetrical.
diet all the time. I
Yeah.
definitely do not diet. Do not diet. But I think you and I are about the same age, mid 70s. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm
Yeah.
44
Yeah. Same.
and my body looks great. My face, I'm white. I'm a fair-skinned white person, so I do look, I'm starting to look like a
So
catcher's mitt.
we are going to age poorly. That's
Yeah.
how that's the price.
Yes, that's the real white man's burden.
That's the
We look like
trade-off.
shit when we get old, especially if you're like me and you choose to live in a subtropical desert and walk around with no sunblock on ever. I'm looking, I look like if you look at
You're
like
looking at
old,
yourself. You're looking at yourself in the reflection now.
yeah, I'm in natural light on my crystal eye webcam. I look like shit, but it's like if you, like there's always documentaries about like white people from Rhodesia or Namibian farmers, and it'll be some guy talking in his accent and be like, yes, the Blicks and the Watts have conflict. And, he's in front of an old Land Rover with a crank on the front. And he always looks like he's 150 years old and he's my
Yeah.
age. And that's what I'm
Right.
starting to look like, the guy that
Right.
has like a yam farm in Namibia that has to scare off elephants from his crops all the time.
Well, my kids are like, oh, I feel like taking a nap or I feel like taking a shower. And I'm like, okay, these are two signs that you're growing up. You want to take a nap, you want to take care of yourself, you want to clean yourself. Now, one of the clearest signs that a white dude is getting older is like when you start paying attention to eye creams and moisturizers and shit.
Bro, let me tell the podcast guests about the delicious tacos eye serum. So I was dating a woman that worked at a cosmetic or like a fancy like eye cream store basically, and she used to bring me the most
Perfect.
incredible like $80 per milliliter eye cream, and that shit really does work.
It really does. It really
But
does.
it's so goddamn expensive, and she stopped seeing me, so I wasn't getting it for free anymore. But what you do is you take a couple drops of organic rosehip seed oil that you can get on Amazon, and then mix that so it's about like 5 parts rosehip seed oil to 100 parts just aloe from the drugstore, aloe vera gel for sunburn. Mix that up; it'll turn into this off-white paste, and put that under your eyes. Don't get it in your eyes, but put it in your eye bags, and it
Hmm.
works about 70% as well.
Oh, wow. There you go. Wow.
But it doesn't work as well as being black.
That's where we're going with this. It definitely doesn't. And who knew you were going to tune in to get a homemade eye cream recipes from your favorite smut writer, Delicious Tacos.
Yeah, this is my hairstylist told me about this. She said organic rosehip seed oil is nature's Botox. So I
Oh,
bought some, and
nature's both.
yeah, it's like $20. You get a decent sized bottle, and it works great.
There you go.
But
Well,
you gotta mix it with the aloe, and you gotta mix it so it's not so oily.
thank you for the specific tips.
Yes.
You should please post the recipe. I'll tweet it out.
Maybe I've got to do a video. I thought I made a fucking home health and beauty video making this shit, but it's hard to hold the phone at the same time as you're mixing the homemade like ingredients. It's
Got to get a tripod, dude.
Yeah.
You got to get a tripod, a ring light, and learn how to dance.
or I could just not make fucking eye cream videos. Because if
Well,
you look at, I mean, I'm looking at my own eyes now. Like, why would anybody listen to me? I look like shit, but you should see me without the cream.
All right. All right. So I have a script and an agenda and lots of questions here.
All right.
I want to ask you, sir, since the last time we talked, your book was in, you were launching your book,
Right.
the last
This is
one.
finally some good news.
Finally
My
some good
novel,
news.
yeah, which is
Your
on sale for
novel.
$3 right now, the Kindle version.
I like $3 for my books too. It's a good price.
It's for the like people. It's my quarantine Decameron sale. Like people are stuck at home, so
It's a very gracious and very nice of you. What has happened to you since then, writing wise? Like, I know that the novel was something that you said, this is my absolute best. If I can't make it with this, I can't make it at all. This is 110% effort. God damn, I fucking hope this works. What's the debrief? What happened afterwards? How did it go? What do you think? What is your assessment now that the book's been out for what, like a year or something?
Yeah, it's been out. It came out December 2018, so it's been a year and 3 or 4 months. It's done well. It didn't. Again, it didn't give me the. It didn't give me the make a living off it, but I made another salary off it, and a ton of people read it and liked it and appreciated it in the way I intended, and discovered things in it that, were buried in it. And I'm grateful for the great response it's gotten. Look, there's two versions. So the two things that I had in my head, the two outcomes were beautiful harem of models sucking my dick as I drive my gold-plated Aston Martin with my book proceeds. The film is made starring Brad Pitt as Delicious Tacos, and at the end he turns toward the camera and the $500 million blockbuster and says, this is based on a real guy named Delicious Tacos, and you, America, should have sex with him. And then the other version is the book comes out and immediately even people who like me are like, what the fuck is this? This is retarded. Like, I liked when you were writing blog posts about your dick, but this is like literally retarded. It's not even a book. and it was a lot closer to the positive version, where a lot of people were like, I really enjoy, they enjoyed the novel. One of the things that I dreamed of, one of the end states I dreamed of, was people pick it up, and how, like, I want to build this so when people pick it up, they can't put it down. And that's what a lot of people said when I read it in one sitting.
Definitely.
What I wanted was people to read it in one sitting and then read it again, because that's what I do with like Michelle Houellebecq books and any books that I really love. And so I put a bunch of stuff in it that people would get on the second read. And some people did it. So I'm grateful. Like, I'm incredibly grateful. It was what I was trying to say was not, I was not completely in my own head speaking in some retarded language that only I could understand. It was communicable to other people. And it's been sort of a success. I mean, I've sold like many thousands of these books. If it had been a small independent press book, it would be a success. If it was a Simon & Schuster book, it would be a fucking complete bomb. But for a schmuck working out of his dining room, it's Star Wars. Like, that's a huge hit. Right. And this new book, Savage Spear of the Unicorn, available now, is selling a lot more than Finally Some Good News did when it first came out.
Wow. So
this was sort of my sane plan for this book. Was like, the thing I noticed when I put out Finally Some Good News is that The Pussy, the book before that, also sold a lot better when the new book came out. So, and this, so each book cumulatively enhances the pickup of the previous books. And so a lot of people are reading my books, more books than ever before. However, again, I've regressed spiritually. So I want the doorbell to ring and it's a hot chick being like, I stalked you from your business license and I need you to impregnate me now.
So let's dig into that for a sec. So most people that write books or write anything literally never have anybody read them. Okay. Most people that blog or tweet literally have no one ever read them. Most people that put effort into writing books, they never get published. The ones that they self-publish, no one reads those. Right. I have an uncle that self-published a book. He sold like 14 copies and he got 2 reviews from his wife and his my mom. And were they
3-star reviews?
They were moderate reviews.
Pretty good.
And so there is, I'd say 99.9% of people that write anything don't even get a chance to get fucking feedback. Right. Yeah. So then you've got the blog, probably had millions of views over all these years in total. Yeah. You have all these people giving you great feedback. Then you put out a couple books and you put out a novel. It sells so much that you're saying it's another salary.
Yes.
And you have achieved a level of commercial success while compared to Star Wars, Is not quite there, but compared to every other single writer that ever wrote anything, you
Yes.
are on top of the game,
Yeah.
as you deservedly should be.
Thank you.
And then once you sort of had that in your rearview mirror now, how do your motivations change? What is motivating you? What do you want now? Now are you an artist anymore? Are you a businessman? What do you need to feel like, oh, you did it now?
Well, here's the thing about shilling. Shilling is a good hobby to have when you're really out of inspired creative gas. Like if I had a great story or a chapter of my next novel coming to me at any given moment, I wouldn't be on Twitter being like, my book's on sale in all caps, right? But you don't have that all the time. You get really a couple really inspired days a month if you're lucky. And then the rest of the time, you got to be doing some horse shit. And it can be playing Nintendo or it can be Twitter and pumping your shit. And so this is okay. There's two instances of like polarized aspects of myself that I struggle to bring together. One is like I try to write honestly, and I do. I don't like ever put anything on there that's horseshit. I don't ever. I change details to protect other people's identities. Period. There always has to be emotional truth in it. That's one thing, and then the other thing is like, fuck it. I want to be fucking famous and have money and not have to go to work. Sorry, I do. I want that. I want to get pussy, and I want to have financial security, and I just want it. And maybe I won't get it, but I'm allowing myself to admit that I want it. Right? I want to. And I also I want that so that fucking because I try to do honest work, it helps people feel less alone, I hope. And I want it to spread around. And there's so much horseshit in the world that maybe something that isn't horseshit needs to be spread around a little further. Something that isn't trying to sell you fucking diversity at Hewlett Packard or some other garbage. The other two things I want to bring together, there's this delicious tacos thing, which is it's not really a persona because it's close to the real me, but there's also like my real name, my bill paying identity. And this is something I've been in therapy about for a while now, is like, I want to bring those two things together. I'm tired of hiding my face, and I'm not ashamed of what I do. And so it's fucked up that nobody who knows me in real life like knows that this is really what I care about. Like I do my best at my job. I try to be of service, but like I don't, this is really what I love to do and care about doing. And it's fucked up that I can't share it with people. And it's also like it's starting to drive me insane that Delicious Tacos feels like a slave master who's whipping my physical body, forcing him to write and shill and post and market to get like his message out there. Like Delicious Tacos is becoming a demonic outside entity who's beating, I can't even say my real name, but whatever, Fred Johnson is just fucking whipping poor Fred Johnson so that he has to get up and write every day and like get blog posts out there and just fucking shill. I would like to have the oneness. I want to bring all these beings together into a writer who is honest and creative and not afraid to fail and just putting himself out there. Also not afraid to support his own work and be like, it's not bad. It's really not bad. Like I'm not ashamed of it. And so it's okay to shill it and tell people they should buy it. And also, I'd like to be able to tell anybody that I meet on the street, like, my name is fucking Delicious Tacos. You can look up my website, deliciostacos.com, and read my book, Savage Spear of the Unicorn, and you might enjoy it. And the problem is, like, I'm too horny. I write about horniness too much. And people are grossed out by it, and you can't have a job and be horny at the same time.
There's so much interesting stuff in there, man. I can totally relate to wanting to feel as a realized whole. There was definitely years there where I was Jack Murphy over on this side, and John Goldman, everybody knows my real name now, is on the other side, and they were so distinct and different that I would get so paranoid about doxing myself or saying the wrong thing to the wrong person, or accidentally sending an email from mail on my iPhone from the wrong address. Like, oh, I fucking did that once at work, and the guy was like, "Who's Jack?" And I'm like, "Oh, never mind. I don't know." And so I totally get wanting to bring those two things together. In fact, as the two personas, your outward self and your writing self, become even more mature and realize the tension between the two probably becomes even greater, right? Because it becomes more of a thing, and you're getting feedback, and you do exist in this universe as an entity. Delicious Tacos as the writer with the fans and the money and you pay bills, with that money, and it's like it's a real living entity. And I can relate to the increasing tension and a desire to want to bring those two things together. I have found personally, and I don't know this is going to help you, but it was so fucking liberating at the end of the day after I picked my tattered resume off the ground and burned through every last dollar I had ever saved and gone through the shame process with people that were judging me who didn't understand. Once all that was done,
right,
and everything came together, I do feel as a liberated person, as a self-actualized individual who it can be creative and honestly creative, and then be able to stand behind it. That has been a really fantastic thing. And I don't know what industry you work in exactly, and I don't know, your personal situation. I have found
I'm a United States congressman.
That makes perfect sense. I have found that people's reaction and my ability to build a new universe around the identity that I wanted to actually be a little bit easier than I had anticipated. What serious consideration have you given to becoming a whole unit?
It's all about the money at this point.
Yeah.
First of all, as far as jobs go, my job is a great job, and I don't want to fuck over the people that I work with and fuck up their lives in some way. So there's a level of just not being inconsiderate about it. But once I have enough money and the books are making enough money, that's when it'll happen.
Yeah.
And once my job, which is not, this is not happening next week. Like if I got fucking fired tomorrow, then it would be tomorrow.
Right.
It's really, but what's interesting, so I got a Twitter message from somebody that I went to college with who had tracked down my fake identity. And she was really excoriating me for pandering to what she thought was the worst elements of our society, basically like, rapists and Nazis, and went on and on about how she knows all these like publishers and agents, and none of those people would ever touch me with a 10-foot pole. And it was literally the exact sort of nightmare that you have of a hostile read by someone who's really into like cunty center left politics, like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And just like, because it's possible to read my stuff and like, look, I don't believe any of those things. I'm not a Nazi or a rapist. I just don't care about people who are. Like, it just doesn't. It's not my fucking, like, society is not my problem. But
also, those aren't real problems, so that's another reason.
Yeah, well, although you get deep enough into it, you see there really are like legit Nazis, and there are legit rapists out there, and there are. But whatever, like the way to. First of all, there's nothing I can do about it. Second of all, if there were anything I could do about it, it would be to write honest messages as a person who's not hateful, and just put non-hateful vibes out there. However, giving my shit a nasty read, you can read it as mean, destructive, evil shit, and people are very eager to do that. And like, that's what I'll have to eat. I'll have to eat a lot of people from my past, giving it hostile reads, and then being disgusted at people that I refuse to disassociate myself from
Mm.
because they too are misinterpreted.
Yeah. I know about that.
And there's a general like hatred, and the reality is like I do a lot of shit that people find nasty. I go to the Philippines and I fuck whores, and look, they're consenting adults, and the argument that people come back is, oh, they're exploited and sex trafficked. They're not. They're
Yeah.
not. They fucking speak English over there, and they're not.
Yeah.
Like I love hearing their stories and talking to them. I'm still friends with them online. I talk to them all the time, and it's just not that bad. It's
Right.
not. Maybe that exists out there. There's certainly children being sex trafficked over there, but that's not what I'm doing.
Yeah. So maybe I'm in too deep. Maybe we're too close to the material. Maybe I don't know, but you talk about hope, right?
Right.
And as I read the stories, that's what I get hope out of it actually. It
This
sounds like despair.
that's how this book is structured. So
Yeah.
these books, this is book is like the Pussy in that it's a collection. It's blog posts and short stories kind of mixed together. And in the Pussy, the chronology itself just gave it a through line. Like they're in chronological order. This
Mhm.
piece is bookended with some exclusive stories that are for the book. And the first two pieces are book exclusive content that are very deliberately cynical. And the last two pieces are very hopeful. And that's the sort of development
Mhm.
is from despair to spiritual growth. Um, and yes, there is. It's about the struggle. You still there's the worst parts of you are battling with the best parts of you, and the worst parts of the world are battling with the best parts of the world. And what you're trying to achieve is some kind of surrender to God's plan.
Mhm. I think as I was reading the book, I was feeling I'm asking myself, what's the arc going to be here? I
Yeah,
know that there's not going to just be a collection of just random
yeah.
thoughts.
Although it kind of is too.
It kind of is, but I'm reading, I'm like, okay, where's the arc? Where's the arc? I'm feeling, I felt set up for hope, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was looking for it. And I feel like I found it even in its own way. But you know, what you're doing is real art. And I think that because of that, people bring their own bias, and I mean to everything, but in particular to art, their own perception and history and expectations and their own value of themselves and their own self judgment to the observation and interpretation of real art. And in your case, if they're reading your book and they feel like shit about themselves and the world, maybe they're going to come away feeling like shit. But like if you read, the hope comes from the fact that you're grappling with issues that everyone has to grapple with.
Right.
And so it's like it creates a community in a way in that we can all relate to this shared experience of basically wanting to love and be loved. I mean, is that a
Yes,
fair assessment?
that's absolutely what the book is about, and that's definitely what the next book is about. Like the next novel is called True Love, and that's really the big one. So this book was, by the way, was meant to be like a creative vacation where I collect. I'm just gonna collect all my old shit again, and fucking, it's about time for another collection. And then it just became like it became so much more difficult than that. This was supposed to be a
Good.
palette cleanser between novels, and then I wanted to put like new stuff into it, and then the new stuff like so the last story in this book, it's called The Spirit, and I think it's one of the best things I've ever done, but it's a transitional. The last two pieces in this book are sort of transitional into the style that I'm trying to build for the next book. And I forget what the question was at this point, but
Hope.
yeah, hope. And that's the message. I'm trying to build toward more like hopeful, emotionally open, vulnerable, less jaded, less persona.
Mm.
And I'm trying to both do that. I'm not trying to sort of artificially do that as a writer. I'm trying to do that as a person,
Mm.
and the writing will reflect that. But it's a hard journey, man, because I'm still horny, and the world is still stubbornly like giving me fucking stupid hinge broads that won't cooperate with my desires, And still alone in this house, and sort of the journey is part of the journey is accepting being alone in the house. One of the things that's been great about quarantine is the abandon all hope element of it, right? I'm not going to meet my girlfriend during quarantine, right? So I can just relax. I can just go out in the park and look at a chick's panties and listen to a bird sing. And that's the peak that I can attain right now. There's a limitation on what you can do in the world, and it's very valuable.
It definitely tells you what you find yourself to be valuable, right?
Yeah.
And it also reveals your motivations for why you do certain things. Whether it's not getting a fucking haircut, or are you working out, or
Yeah.
what do you? Hey, you always said if you only had the time, motherfucker. Well, you got the time. You got the time now, bro.
Yeah, that's the other. I err on the side of kicking myself in the ass too much.
Oh yeah, you don't
because
say.
because I was reading something on Twitter, like a guy was talking about all the writers I know are not writing and they're feeling really bad. And like, I'm always writing like a fiend and I should stop. I need to write less because I'm trying to post all this shit. I got a new book. I'm trying to keep the views up for the blog and it's becoming really repetitive. It's like this, I've got I'm doing these Corona diaries and it's like the CSI franchise when they're getting to like shitty towns and it's the same show over and over again. It's like, it's okay to have a couple weeks with no blog post and just like let it. There's another thing that I struggle with, right? Because I used to know that a book does not have a big opening weekend. It's not a movie.
Right.
And so this book did well, but I had to look at my old book sales to remind myself that it's doing better than my past books, which I consider to be pretty successful. I just had so much fucking anxiety built up about it. And then I got to be writing the Decameron right now. And it's really, this new book is the fucking Decameron. It literally has a bunch of crazy stories about unicorns and birds. And this is another area where this is a departure and unlike my old books, because the stories in this one are much more fantastical. There were fantastical stories in the Pussy that all sort of still centered around the same character, but these ones, there's the Mark Zuckerberg stories in this book. There's the story that's literally from the perspective of a bird in this book. There's a artificial intelligent robot story, and there's just a lot of like more imaginative shit happening. But I really kick myself in the ass still. Like, well, why aren't you writing the Decameron? I had put out a book 2 weeks ago.
Right.
That is the Decameron 2 weeks ago. And now I'm already like dreading the next book. The next book is really the beast. The next book is really like the big one. And its job is it has to unite all elements of my personality and the earth.
Yes.
And be this great piece of spiritual advancement while just getting out there and having fun and writing it.
And being the thing that allows the unison, the singularity of delicious tacos and Fred Johnson into one money-making machine with free of all shame and public scrutiny.
Yes, that's the one that's going to get me on the red carpet. I also have to translate a bunch of Latin literature myself in order to write it. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Well,
at the same time, though, it's great in a way. It's like, so what if this last book had popped and it made me a bunch of money and got me a bunch of pussy? Would I be motivated even? Like this next book, for however much I'm like, it has to exist. It has a message. I know what it is and it has to exist, right? It has to be born. So what if I succeed? Will I then not care?
That's the whole. Who
knows? I mean, maybe we'll never know, right? It would be nice to have the answer to that question. Like, it turns out if I succeeded, I just got lazy. Excuse me.
I think that happens to a lot of people, actually. Complacency is a killer. There's no question about that. But a true artist, you would be writing even if nobody was reading. We know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you will continue to write, and as you sell out more and more, and as you gear yourself towards that financial independence, your motivations will change, and you evolve. And I want to commend you for that. Actually, you and I traveled some of the same similar early internet routes to get to where we are today, and I think that we can look around and see the sidelines littered with a bunch of bodies of people who never evolved and never were able to write honestly about themselves and then reflect enough to know that they themselves have changed, and then therefore their content should have changed and perspectives could have changed. So good for you, man. And I'm happy to hear that you can see the next step up and the next evolution for your art. Because you yourself are evolving. Kudos to you for that. That was one of my main questions and thrusts I wanted to get to with this conversation was, you've made it this far, dude. You're financially successful at this. People love your work. Now you have this chance, to consolidate all that and let me heap some more pressure on you, and to have freedom and expectation and a built-in market waiting for you to deliver your fucking opus or Decameron, wherever the fuck that is. Yeah. I'm gonna have to look that up after this podcast. But yes, you can do it. You're ready. You're now. Congratulations.
Right. It's always been like this though, where I'm thinking about the next one. I'm hearing a little echo. Do you hear any echo?
I do not hear any echo. And if so, we fix it in post, whatever that means.
I'm hearing it in my headphones, but what the fuck was I talking about? It's always been like this where when I deliver something, like when the book now exists, and it's been out for 2 weeks. Like I'm immediately like, no, I've total contempt for it. I'm thinking about the next one, right? The next one is the big one. The next one is always over the next hill is where we will find paradise.
If only, sir.
Which is a good way to think in a way, but like I need to, like for my own mental health, at some point I need to relax. I put out 4 books in the last 5 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah, but it's like, it just feels like, so now it's like the next one is the scary beast that I got to hunt while enjoying it. You better enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. We're right about that too, man. That's right. That's the people say, write what you know. I mean, that's so fucking cliched and retarded advice, but it's the absolute goddamn fucking truth. There's no question about that. And then practice what you preach. It's backwards. It's preach what you practice. That's what I have figured out. And so, you'll find that feedback and that examination, and there'll be a new product and a synergy and a synthesis, and then there'll be the next cover will be like a phoenix. So you're just like emerging out of all this stuff, and then going to become the singular person and the artist and the real life person fusing into one. Your artistic level unlocked, freedom enhanced, level 99. It's coming. All you gotta do is fucking sit down and write, dude. Come on, get to it.
Yeah, no pressure there, right?
I'm in a weird there, right?
Yeah, I'm in a weird state too. This is also like, I'm creatively bankrupt today because again, I had to make some new content for the book, and then I make a bunch of new blog posts, and like my vault is pretty tapped out because when I put out the last book, I fucking went through and put out anything that could conceivably be a post. I fucking rushed it onto the site. Mm-hmm. So I need to like let myself recharge for a couple minutes, have some experiences, read some good books, and I need to accept that this is the time, right? This is the shilling time. I'm already with this book too. Like, for instance, I did a podcast yesterday, and now I'm doing a podcast today. The last book it took me like 3 months to do a podcast. I'm like, I got to fucking get out there, and now I got to do these podcasts and blah, blah, blah. Like, I need to relax.
Yeah.
I need to fucking relax and let people discover the book. Let it have some fucking word of people are liking it. At this stage, I have no idea whether it's good or not. Like if I pick it up and the good sign is like if I pick it up and I start reading it, like I find myself reading it. This was the true of finally some good news too. If I was reading my own book, once I gave it a month or two after going through it for typos, like a chimp, picking ticks off another tick's back. Once I had some separation from it and was able to look at it again and I really agonized over what to include in this. And like, is the first section about like sex addiction, like too fucking long and all this shit. And then so right now I'm sick of looking at it, but once I get some distance from it, I'm able to appreciate that, like, okay, my shit is pretty good. It's not as good as Michel Houellebecq, but it's pretty fucking good. Like, I'm doing okay.
Definitely. I remember finishing my book and I didn't want to talk about it, think about it, see it or anything for a while afterwards. But now when I pick it up, I just to a random page every once in a while, I end up reading like 20 pages. And afterwards I put it out, I'm like, Not fucking bad.
That's what you build a style for, is you build a style to pull people forward. And
Mm,
that's what you sort of, you learn how to, you're kind of controlling the eye, right? You're controlling how fast you drag the eye along the page, and that has to do with like sentence length and how many words you cut. You mentioned on the last podcast that like a lot of the sentences are cut really down to where like the verbs are cut out and stuff, and that's because like that's a
yeah,
moment where you got to really pull the person forward fast.
yeah,
Um,
I love
so
that.
that's why you do the work of building a style,
Right.
is so that you can modulate, you can pull people along.
Where are you going thematically, do you think? Because I want to take this time to say, on one hand, I'm a huge fan of your work. I followed you for about more than a decade, my friend. Been reading shit since the old days.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's true, right? Think back to some of the forums and stuff and
Wow.
places we used to congregate.
Good Lord.
It's 2020, bro. It's been
Right.
10 years.
Right.
So I've been following and tracking you for a long time. Where are you going thematically? And I'd like to challenge you. I think you could tackle any theme that you would like.
The next book is called True Love, and it's about true love. And there's kind of a plot to it, and I have maybe the first chapter that I may or may not keep, and I have the last sentence, and then I have a structural. I mean, I think you need three beats when you, with any story. You need a that correspond with three heuristics, right? You have the way you remember a long story is by three heuristics: primacy, recency, and availability. In other words, you remember the first thing, primacy; the last thing, recency, the last thing you heard; and availability, which is the thing that pops.
Mm,
Um, and the thing that pops is the end of Act Two. It's the moment when your character is at his most despairing point. So I have those three things, and I have kind of a framework of how I want to fit those things together. And I have concepts of the books, the stories that I want it to resemble. But I need to experience true love or understand what true love is, and that's the journey, right?
hmm
I've also been traveling around the country, like interviewing people about this. I've been doing like
Really?
a ton of the, yeah, I don't fuck around. Like I'm not lazy about this stuff. I go gather stories, especially when I have to write about women. I very intensely talk to lots of women and hear their stories and put them all together, because I don't, it's hard to write from a woman's perspective. So
Mm.
you have to
What do you,
go and you have to like kind of earn their trust and listen to them.
hmm.
So I was
So,
driving around like titty bars in the Southwest and like small towns in the Southwest, like getting lap dances and then getting the strippers to tell me a story.
huh. Interesting. I mean, you are obviously you're a professional, and you were telling me about
That's debatable, but
get out of here. You were telling me in the last book about how you went to like some missile
oh yeah,
silo and dug around and shit in
went to
there.
the
Yeah.
yeah. I mean that's not as exotic as it sounds. It's just that
No, but it's
unbeknownst
important.
to most people, Los Angeles is ringed with a series of anti-nuclear air attack defense sites. These Nike missile sites that are missile bunkers where they'd launch anti-air missiles or anti-missile missiles or something. But they're just out there. So I went up and crawled into one. Probably I'll have cancer in 10 years because it's not, it's like a bunch of fucking rocket fuel. I mean, look, you go in there and there's a fucking rocket launcher under a 40-foot steel door. And it's just
Jeez.
up there open. People, I mean, teenagers go drink up there and spray, I talk about the graffiti in the book, but,
But my
they got rid of the missiles because, they decided to just move the nuclear weapons around to move our nukes away from population centers so that the Russians wouldn't attack them and we wouldn't lose the valuable nukes.
Hmm. That's one way of looking at
Yeah.
it. But the reason I bring it up is because you are a professional. You work every day at your craft. You edit the shit out of things, as you said. You go out in the field. You're doing research.
Yeah.
You're not quote just a blogger, which is such a 1995 diminutive that doesn't
Yeah.
mean anything anymore.
I work really
Um,
hard and I practice really hard. I
yeah.
throw out 95% of what I write. And there is there is a concept of there's a concept of the big break where you're so talented that somebody discovers you at the Schwab's counter, and then the next day you're on fucking American Idol and you're a big star and you get the record deal. And fuck that. Like, my shit sucked. When you were talking about the forums we were on 10 years ago, my shit was retarded, stupid. It sucked. I was trying to sound like somebody else, and it took a long time to break that habit. And I did that by busting my ass. And if somebody else can just sit down and write something great easily, fuck them, dude. I'm going to go fucking beat that person's head in with a shovel, that fucking pussy, for having such incredible luck.
Talents.
It's, I mean, look, there's such a thing as talent too, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's also like, you have to enjoy practice. You have to enjoy. When I first started learning guitar, I was 13 years old, and like everybody else, when you first start learning, it's really hard to, it's physically a hard thing to do. But once you hear the first few chords of that Led Zeppelin song coming out of your hands, it's magical, and it makes you want to practice every day. You must enjoy practice. And writing, really just journaling is writing practice, and it has therapeutic value too. You write about how you feel, and like if something shitty happens, you write it down and you feel better. And so that's really valuable, and that keeps you doing it. But what I tell writers, aspiring writer is such a ridiculous thing. There's no barrier to entry to being a writer. Like, if you fucking type, you're a writer. Yep. But what I did was, when I started deliciostacos.com, I started that in 2012. And in 2011, I wrote for like an hour every day for a year without posting it. Or maybe I was posting it on my old blog, but I sandbagged material and just tried writing, just as an endurance contest with myself, just tried writing every day for a year. And just try that. Don't think about posting it anywhere. Just take a year and get good. And you will. If you do anything every day for a year, like I'm doing archery right now. I bought the bow and arrow to scare people, so I could be Burt Reynolds in Deliverance and scare people away from my house. And it turns out it's fun to fucking shoot a garbage bag full of insulation out back every day. And you just get good. I'm not an especially talented archer, but I could fucking light a match with that thing at 10 yards now.
Yeah, that's awesome. But with writing is a writing is a mechanism. It is a mechanism for expression, and that expression comes from introspection and observation. And those are some things that you need to have: honesty and vulnerability, in order to be successful at. So yeah, you can mechanically learn how to produce prose, but it's the honesty and the rigorous self introspection that's going to lead people to being successful, I think.
This is the thing that I was thinking about today, right? Like, you have to accept who you are. Like, basically accept that you're a dork. I was on the Kantbot podcast with Sam Pink, and I'm listening to it, and I'm like, I sound like a fucking dork. Why? And it's because I am a dork. I am a fucking gay sounding pussy. And that's just the way it is. And my physical body is that of a 6'2" weight training enthusiast who runs up mountains now. So I look like I can kick your ass. I'm a huge pussy. That's who I am, and it's okay. So that's one other thing when it kind of irritates me when people talk about like, well, your persona. Like, it's not like, I am who I am. I'm being real. And I think a lot of people on what you would call our side of the internet are trying to be too manly, and like everything. The advantage we have as men is like everything is fucking manly. Every accomplishment that was ever done until Mary Wollstonecraft and besides Sappho was done by a man. So if you want to write a poem, that's manly. If you want to, if being horny is manly, right? Desire is manly,
and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. And I think what's partly driving your success is the relatability of it, and then the honesty, and then the ability to put it down on paper. And so people read it and they feel like they're not as alone, and then they get a little bit of hope, and they're entertained and grossed out and weirded out, and they laugh all at the same fucking time. That's why it's beautiful, bro. That's why I have so much faith in you. And I know that as long as you just keep doing this, man, I think everything that you ever want to achieve with writing is going to come your way. And I know that this is something that you have had, you've written your whole life, basically. I do remember listening
except for 10 years. I took a 10-year break where all I wrote was love letters from 18 to 28.
But self-expression, my friend, self-expression. You're just talking about a different medium.
Yeah.
You're a different tool. You're still writing. You're still thinking. I remember a podcast you did with a mutual that we have. I don't know that it's even still published anymore, but I do remember hearing about some of your early writing experiences. And so I do know that it's something that it's passion. And obviously it's passion for you, Brio, because you gotta be retardedly passionate in order to make it as a writer. You have to be singularly obsessed,
sort of
irrationally so.
I mean, at this point, it's been so long that it doesn't feel like an obsession anymore. It's also like, if you're listening to this is, I think, like, you don't psych yourself out. Like, just make it a habit. It's just got to be a habit. That's all.
Yeah,
make it a habit, and then there's an element you can control, which is you're not even, I hate to use the word discipline about it, because it's not very disciplined to sit out there and type on your laptop in the backyard and be like, fuck, god damn, I really want to fuck this girl. But it's just the habit of going there. Like, if you want to get in shape, don't not go to the gym.
Right.
You don't need, that's all. Just don't not go. Don't not write, and everything else is going to be fine. And it's not like it's an obsession to an outside observer, but to you, it's just a fucking habit. And then when something happens, the words are there because you've got, calluses on your fingertips from practicing that guitar every day. So when it's time to play the blues, you can. Right?
Somehow I'm always ready to write when it's time to play the blues.
Yeah, when something really hurts, like, you got to. That's how you make it, like, hurt in a purer way, right? Share it with other people, and they've been through the same shit.
One thing I have remarked upon recently is that, to be crass, I have monetized my personal pain. I've been able to have shitty, negative experiences in life, and then by way of writing, I've been able to monetize that and turn that into something positive for myself, my family, my community, people around me. It's a fucking miracle. And I step back and I appreciate it every day. I am gratefully in a place where my writing identity is who I am. I am the writing identity. I'm all these things all merged together. I'm feeding my family. I'm helping the world. I'm helping my brothers. And it all came from this ability to tell my own story and to monetize pain. That is a really crazy 2020 phenomenon, and I'm just, like, honored to be a part of it. To be honest,
so the money part is something I'm still coming to terms with. Like, you're much more comfortable with, I'm going to do this as a professional thing. I'm going to have multiple tentacles and things, like a podcast. You have your secret society and, like, all this other shit. I mean, I still have a job too, so that's where a lot of my, like, horseshit energy goes. That's where, like, my business energy largely goes towards my job.
Yeah.
But I wonder about, like, I'm getting over. This is a thing. Like, I'm coming to accept the fact that, like, I want fucking money from this. Like, I want money.
Yeah.
I want money and acclaim, and I want people to, It's not
do you really? Are you joking? Come on, are you joking?
Well,
about the
look,
acclaim part?
This is where I'm at now, because I'm in a spiritually desperate place, because I'm creatively out of gas, and I'm, like, watching my book sales all day. This is what happens. Like, this is just like, this is the equivalent of, like, eating pizza and drinking Mountain Dew for 2 weeks and not being healthy, right? You got to let yourself be like, I got to allow myself to be like, all right, I'm going to check my book sales, and that's what I'm going to do. And it's okay to do that for a couple of weeks. And it's okay to think about the money for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But it's not okay to ever, like, I would not change a comma to make a dollar if the comma didn't belong there. I would and that is an evil act. That's evil, and I will not do it. So
Good.
I would never, like, to lie to the fucking reader is evil. And that's a thing that, like, and there's so much evil out there. If I open a new tab in Firefox right now, and let's do that as a demonstration, right? It's got, like, here are the
KDP.
the suggested blog post. Now is the right time to switch your car insurance. These days, adaptability is a must-have trait. Here's how to spot it and increase it. The best running tips of all time. Should Neiman Marcus exist? The good guy, bad guy myth. fucking, why are you so smart? Thank mom and your difficult birth. Blah, blah, blah. Zoom fatigue is taxing the brain. We expect too much from our romantic partners. Like, none of this shit, you know, people get trapped in the money and they're not even making good money.
Right.
So I have such a counter drive to that. And it's weird. Like, I don't know. I still like, I'm not spiritually there on it. Right.
Well, here's
I
the
wish
thing.
somebody would just give me $1 million so I wouldn't have to worry about it.
I had to come to terms with this, and I'm still a little hesitant to talk about it because there's some sort of evilness around money.
Yeah.
But like the people that buy things from me, whether it's a book or participate in community or whatever, they want to give me that money. Like they want to. Because they're getting something that they want in return.
Right.
So it's actually like a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And there's nothing evil about it whatsoever. And these people want you, your fans, people who bought every single one of your books, they want you to find that point at which you don't have to, you know, go and do a job that you don't really want to do so that you can follow your passion. I maybe I don't know you as well as I think, but I think that you're joking a little bit when you're like, it's all just about the fucking money. I think it's really about freedom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Rich to me, when I say get rich, rich means like just not worrying about money. I have very simple tastes, man. I like cooking a pork chop that costs $1.99 a pound, and like my entertainment is watching a bird for free.
Right.
So,
Right.
you
So
know,
you
I
want
like
freedom.
I
You
like to
want
travel to
freedom.
places where the median salary is $1,500 a year, so it's not exactly the fucking Four Seasons.
You want freedom, and you're gonna find it. And I think you'll find also too that once you take that business energy that you're selling to somebody else, and then you start applying it exclusively to your own stuff,
Yeah.
you'll find more opportunities and more energy and more momentum there as well.
Yeah, I think it's just sort of decoupling the anxiety from it. Like I felt a great deal of like I gotta like really like I really felt like I had to get this book out, and it's sort of faithlessness and pessimism rear their ugly head when I rationally know it's not true. Like I can't fail. At this point, I cannot fail. Like what I wanted in life was to be a novelist. I wrote a novel already. It's good, and a lot of people like it. That's it. I can drop dead, and that's I know what it feels like, and I did my best. Right? I can drop dead, but still, there's something like weird. I don't fucking know. I don't. Why am I kicking myself in the ass? Like, why can't I just fucking relax?
It's perspective, and finding that relaxation is something that people have tried to do for thousands and thousands and thousands of years unsuccessfully. Now, what I used to tell my therapist was that drive, that never being happy with what you got thing, that's how successful people get successful, and that's how I propel myself forward. I think that was a cop out, maybe. It was just me telling myself what I wanted to hear. But you know, I think maybe there's some truth to it. I think that you know you find ways yourself in your personal life to find a spiritual satisfaction, and you get that energy. I think you can slow things down and separate that anxiety from it and focus on your art, which you have, right? You've already done it. So just like with everything, it's all about perspective. And I want to make a quick hard jump here because perspective, spirituality, hope. I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
Why did you dedicate this book to your dad?
Oh, he died in 2016. So the pussy was dedicated. No, finally, some good news was dedicated to Courtney, who was my ex fiance, one of my best friends, who died in 2015. And you know, my dad died, and he had a book coming. Like I would have dedicated finally some good news to him, but somebody beat him to the grave. You know, like so. Uh, God willing, the next book won't have a dedication.
Right, I see.
Yeah. So dead people get books. I explained this to Angela, who's really a lot of these. All three of these books were kind of about Angela, so they all should have been dedicated to Angela. But I had to explain to her, like, sorry, somebody else fucking bit the dust. So,
Jeez, what did he know of your writing?
not much. He didn't use a computer. I don't know if he really knew. I think he probably knew that I was writing books. I mean, he died before the pussy came out, so
Mm.
At that point I had released an ebook, so what was that a few hundred people bought, so they didn't kind of didn't exist. And there was a blog, like I would have had to explain to him what a blog is. um,
Right.
the conversations we had were about other things. He was very he literally never used a computer, and like didn't have a cell phone, and somebody had to hand him a cell phone. He had a real blessed life that way. My father
Huh.
was an interesting cat, man. He was a United States Marine, former he was a real bon vivant. Like, let's say he had a lot of exciting criminal activities in his past,
Hmm.
and he really knew how to live. He was a great man.
Interesting. To what extent does your family, is your intimate, close family aware of what's going on and what have they read
You,
and what do they
you
think?
know, my mom and stepdad know that it exists. I haven't given it to them. Like, and I think they're respecting my privacy on that. But that's another thing. Like, I'm gonna have to show it to them someday.
Yeah.
Maybe the next one, maybe this one. I don't know. I don't want, but it's weird because that's the thing. I write about fucking whores, and I used to write about doing heroin. So you don't want your parents to read that just because they'll worry about you.
Mm.
At the same time, I'm like one of those comedians that can't go on the Tonight Show because I don't have 5 clean minutes. Like, I don't have a family friendly thing. And then to present the family friendly pieces out of context with the Henry Miller-ish shit, it doesn't work. It kind of works as a whole. It has to be, the collections work because there's contrast between, clashing desires and elements of humanity. I don't know, but yeah, I'll show them my books, I hope, unless they drop dead. Like, this is, and then I'll dedicate the books to them, unless they get corona.
Unless they get corona.
Yeah.
Uh, Interesting. I was curious actually as to how that relationship with your dad have impacted you and your perception and your writing, because putting them as a dedication, that's not like the hugest thing in the whole wide world, but you were thinking about him when you wrote it, and you
Yeah.
put it right there on the front page. It struck me that after actually I read the whole book, I went back, I skimmed it again, and then this morning I went down like, let me just see who it was dedicated to.
You were
Because
hoping it was
that's
Jack Murphy.
shit. No, you talk trash about me a couple times in the
Wait,
book.
what did
I'm
I
pretty
say?
sure.
Wait,
So
where, when?
all the rest of you can suck my fucking dick. You can't write for shit.
That's not about
You
you. No,
you
no,
with
no,
the
no.
gay ass podcast.
No, no, no,
No,
no,
I'm
no.
just
I
kidding. I'm
would never
kidding. I know it's
trash.
not
Yeah,
about
yeah.
me. I know it's not about me. I'm just kidding. But when I wanted to turn to the front page and see who was for, and it struck me. It just
Yeah.
said, for dad.
Yeah.
And fathers and sons have such an interesting relationship, and they have there's so many different ways that we can relate to those.
Well,
And
I was thinking about
you know,
him yesterday because I'm trying to figure out what true love is. And I'm remembering him, taking me fishing, waking up early to take me up to New Hampshire fishing when I was like maybe, between 5 and 8. And like remembering him taking cushions off the couch, putting them in the back of his F-150 Super Cab so I could keep sleeping while he drove to drive us up to the lake. And that's true love, right? That's an
yeah,
example of true love. And so how
yeah,
does that work? How does that work in?
fascinating. So is the next book, whose theme is true love, will it stray from simple romantic love and male female
I
love?
mean, it
And
might have to. Originally, I was like, here was my original ambition. I'm going to fall in true love. First of all, I thought it was going to be with Angela. This book is going to be about me rekindling my relationship with Angela. So it's like, and she's in Europe. So it's like, hey, can I come visit you? And she's like, fuck no. Shithead, are you kidding me? I talk to her every day. Where I love her to death. We're best friends, but like, so that put a crimp in that plan. so so now I'm like trying to understand what true love is. Is it the love between is it, there's an expression of like, is it the love between a man and a woman? Is it the love between a man and his child? Is it the love between a man and God, between man and nature, between man and himself? What is it? It's so there's a fucking philosophical question, and what's the answer? I don't know.
yeah, yeah,
I know the
it's
emotion that it comes. There's something I really want to understand, and like I have to come to. This is where I'm at a sort of disadvantage compared to the last book because I knew what the message of the last novel was. Really, I never had any doubt, which is like just a moment where you're sitting at work and like you want a fucking asteroid to hit the Earth so that you don't have to work anymore. And I kept feeling that it's like, that's real. That's what this is about. And that's what every little beat of that book is about. So like, what is true love is still an unanswered question. And I got to give myself the time and space to explore it. Maybe answer it, maybe not. But I do have the answer in the last sentence, right? I do have the answer. But it's just, how do you get there?
I only laugh at, you're like, I just need to give myself a little time to figure out the answer to the question, what is love?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
Yes. Yeah. Look,
cool, man. I hope you nail it.
There's a million answers. I know, no pressure. Except that I do at the same time, like, I really believe, like, write the last sentence first. Like,
yeah,
I got it.
Interesting.
So, or at least I got how to, express it. I got it. So
yeah,
I'm all right. Like that's your anchor, right? It's like being on a ship in a storm, and like I got the mast that I can hold on to. So that's why I kind of have no doubt that it will be something. This book will exist and it will be something, because I have that, like, boom, I have like, what is it, 1, 2, 3? It's 4 words. I have 4 words, and that's all you need.
And then I killed her.
Right. Exactly. No, exactly.
My book about true love.
Anyway, fuck that bitch.
Right. Exactly. I find it interesting that you picked that anchor point like that. I myself have never really written a novel or a novella or like extended fiction like that. So I already always have, maybe the themes aren't there, but like I know what I know what I'm writing about. Like I'm sitting down, I'm writing this thing that happened to me or happened to somebody else I know. I'm like sort of reporting, but doing it creatively. Interesting to think about setting the end and the very end, and then trying to figure your way back from there. I've read or heard other writers say, just pick an amazing situation or amazing problem and describe how everybody got to that point, and then you have the end as well too. But have you found your go ahead.
I did that a little bit with the finally some good news, which is like pick an amazing problem as a nuke goes off while you're in your office.
Right.
Yeah. But I'm sorry, what was your question?
Well, I was just going to say, has your process evolved over time? Last time we checked, it's never check Twitter,
right.
Read something good while you're taking a dump, and then sit down and go right then. Has the process evolved? Have you been able to turn it on and off any more easily? Are you writing in the evenings now, or what?
You have to. So for something good, it has to have an emotional core, and that hasn't changed. You have to have an emotion around it. So a short story has to have an emotion around it. So there's a story in this book called Norwood, and that's about fear of aging and mortality, right? And you know what that is. And then there's one level of emotional inspiration, and then there's sort of like you have thoughts kind of stewing, and you have images, and like Norwood is something I wrote at the beginning of years ago. And then at some point you're fucking in the shower or you're walking, and like suddenly like disparate elements go click, 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 and then you have the whole plot. That's what happened with the novel too. Like one day I was like, so how does this guy cause the nuclear holocaust? How does it? I probably thought about it for like 2 years. And then one day I'm driving to work or walking from my fucking parking space to my office, and it's like click, 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 oh shit, and there it is. And it's all like irrevocably there. The plot is always, maybe it's my fucking script development experience from Hollywood that makes it like this, but it's just like the plot is always like a series. It's like you're having your back cracked. That same sensation of like things are popping, clicking, bones are aligning with each other, and it's just a natural, real like process where it's indisputable what that plot is, and it just comes, and you can't force it. You got to kind of let it come. So there has to be inspiration. And I'm a little easier on myself with the Twitter shit. Like I get a lot of inspiration from Twitter. I wrote a story called Universal Basic Woman, which was probably my biggest blog hit of last year by far. And that's entirely, I mean, the emotional core of that is fear of dying alone. And like the question of, am I just totally unlovable? Like if the government forced somebody to be my girlfriend, would I still end up alone? And however, every detail in that story is entirely from Twitter. Every little fucking thing is completely a current events thing. And because you but so what you want to avoid is having something be entirely ephemeral. Like um the details can be stupid passing things from current events because there's a real emotional core. Like there's a story in the new book Savage Spirit of the Unicorn called The Bitcoin. It was written in December 2017 at a specific moment when Bitcoin was on this incredible asymptotic curve towards infinity, and everybody was going to make $1 billion. And there was the heat of that moment, but it's a Magic Beans story where it's about a person, chasing their own desires to their death, and that's always going to be real. So you can forgive yourself using horseshit details from the day to day, because when you read, like, a Roman story, if you read the Aeneid and he's on his way to his destiny, and then he has a dalliance with a woman in a cave that tries to seduce him into staying, but he's like, no, baby, I gotta go, and then she fucking offs herself. Like, you know, you don't, you're not fucking a woman in a cave, but you've been with that woman, right?
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
ancient Rome, right? Like you read
Yeah.
Catullus, and what is he talking about? I don't know, like, gossip and rumor mongering, cock blocking him from getting his woman. And, look, he didn't know what Snapchat was, but it's the same shit, right? So in 2,000 years, the fucking aliens, basketball sized head, super evolved people with their thought technology will read my shit and be like, I don't know what this Twitter was, but I understand loneliness.
So this is my morning read right now.
Nice.
Aristotle, Nicomachean Ethics. And what's interesting in there, I'm not the first one to discover this, but it's 2,500 years old, but it still rings absolutely true and nearly universal to this very moment.
Yeah.
And that is why people find such value in your stories. And they are universal. Anybody from any walk of life can appreciate them because you really do dig down to our base human emotions and needs and desires and our senses of inadequacy. And it strikes me that as we're talking, you're able to put it in such context, and it makes it, it brings a maturity and a depth to your work, which if you just skim it, you're not gonna get that. You really have to read it and appreciate it, and then have these conversations. Listen to this. Your books. I'm wondering, could they use an introduction?
Well, this is a thing this is another thing where I'm like, okay, I do my best with the short stories, but I so don't want to have them be like part of prissy, inaccessible literature. And so it's good that they're mixed with a bunch of shit where it's blog posts about me talking about jerking off, right?
Mm-hmm.
The model is the Notes of a Dirty Old Man books, the Bukowski books, because they had short stories mixed in with just him fucking rambling about drinking. And it just works because there's such a, like, I think people have a real, whatever I want my books to be or not, I don't want it to be someone's fucking homework assignment that they feel that they have to read, right? I want it to be something that somebody discovers for themselves and picks up and enjoys. And it doesn't feel like they're doing it to impress some credentialing committee.
Right. But I do appreciate the giving the greater depth to this, and I am glad that my listeners are going to hear this context and then be able to read the book with this in mind, because it's not flippant, it's not smut, it's not inconsequential. They're universal truths. They're things that every guy can relate to, every girl can relate to too, if they just let themselves get into it. And I just want to say thanks, man. I mean, I love reading it. I have all of your books. I've read each one of them straight through from first word to last word each time. I go back to them. You're my favorite, fiction writer that's tackling these issues out here in the world today. And I want to help get the message out. And so I'm really grateful that you came on the podcast today. Thank you for coming on from the last time. I'm going to pimp the shit out of this podcast and your book over the next couple of months here, because it's important to me. I like you and I love what you're doing, man. So congratulations to you on your success. May you find your personal singularity in the next year or two. I have a feeling it's coming for you. And when it does happen, please do take a moment to appreciate how long you've worked for it and how much you appreciate it, instead of just pissing all over it and wondering what is going to be next.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So it's Savage Spear of the Unicorn.
Oh yeah,
available now
we're getting
on
there.
Amazon.
Yes, make sure you get a hard copy so that one day when our great overlords erase all of your Amazon Kindle, you will still have it in its original unadulterated form. Please go out and get it. Again, Savage Spear of the Unicorn, Stories by Delicious Tacos, a collection of shorts that does have a theme and an arc, and you will get a message to take away from it. DeliciousTacos.com, is that right, sir?
That's right, yeah.
DeliciousTacos.com. Go down there, shimmy up the $5 or whatever it is to get behind the paywall. Is the paywall still up?
No, it's well, sort of. It's not a paywall. It's just literally like shit that could get me fired. I put behind a password. So
do it.
If you buy the book and email me the receipt, I'll send you a bonus ebook, and I'll send you the password for all the password protected posts. I mean, there's some good shit, but there's 225 posts that I had to password protect because they talk about committing felonies or wanting to have sex with 16-year-old girls or, doing cocaine and stuff like that.
Cool. So get the password to get all the good stuff. And hopefully we will continue these podcasts and your book releases and have this continuing ongoing discussion, sir. It's always an honor and a pleasure to speak with you. I'm proud of you, and I'm happy to see what's happening to you, and I want to help in any way that I can. Savage Spear of the Unicorn by Delicious Tacos, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, guys. Check me out, jackmurphylive.com, on Twitter at jackmurphylive, liminal order.com. Fuck the cyber squatter.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. My Twitter is delicious_tacos.
Come and find us, everybody. All right, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you.